All right, so we are officially recording. Good afternoon, Melanie. Can you hear me well?
Yes, Kyle, thanks.
Awesome. So, hello everyone from the Parkinson support group. It's Kyle Vanderheide. Hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, and staying somewhat active while at home. I know it's been a while, so hopefully we'll get through all this soon and be able to meet in person again. But today I wanted to share a good colleague and friend of mine that we've had the opportunity to work together. For those of you that do know that I work for Wanda, the original facilitator of the support group, and she has a family experience with Parkinson's, so we thought it would be a great opportunity for her to share that experience, share her story, and then just kind of connect with you guys a little bit more virtually as we are today. So like I said, today we have Melanie, Aron. And so Melanie, I'll throw it over to you if you just want to start off by introducing yourself. And you can kind of start off with your story, and we'll go from there, really.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being a part of the support group. They are so very important. My background, I actually came out of the senior living industry, so I definitely have a passion for our seniors. And I have very personal history with Parkinson's disease, as my own mother was diagnosed when I was very young. And she officially was diagnosed in 1969, but probably had signs and symptoms of the disease probably for a decade or so previous to that. And so we were fortunate living in the Washington, D.C. area to live near the National Institutes of Health. And my father, who really was her primary caregiver for 4 decades or more, got her into several clinical trials. And so I have to say she's definitely my hero in many ways, but she was very brave in her way of being a part of things that there was really no known to it. Everything was pretty unknown. And she was in clinical trials for pharmaceuticals, with the dopamine drugs, and then was one of the first people in the United States to willingly have the deep brain stimulation, and which did correct her tremor mostly, and it had some other side effects that she very courageously lived with for many, many years up until her passing in 2012. I don't recall a lot of that time, as I was very young. I was only about 7 years old. But growing up with a mother with a debilitating disease, as many of you well know, was quite challenging. And there were certain things that she couldn't do. But I have to say, as a young person, probably in my adolescent and teen years, there was a level of embarrassment to having a mother who had a disease that was very external, with a tremor and a limp, and she had some paralysis. And yeah, it was quite challenging, but there was a time in my life where I got to turn that around, and I got to see her as probably one of the bravest people I've ever known in my life. And so I commend all of you for living with this disease. And all I can say is that you're living in a great time, because there have been so many great advances, not just in pharmaceuticals, but in all levels of research around the disease. The one thing that sticks out for me, though, from growing up, my father was, as I said, very involved in her care, and he was the president of the Parkinsonian Society of Greater Washington in Washington, D.C. for a long time. He also taught a lot of exercise classes, which compelled me to do the same much later in my life. because we find that exercise is very good for Parkinson's and for balance and, you know, for maintaining our motor skills for sure. And so when I was, oh, I don't know, probably in my mid-20s, I decided to give back. I was living in Denver, Colorado at the time, and became a volunteer to give caregivers, primarily spouses at that time, relief, to sit with their Parkinson patients and read to them or do activities of any kind. And I got so much fulfillment out of that, that many years later, I decided to join the board of directors for the Parkinson Association of the Rockies, which was in its, you know, infancy really at that time. And just remarkable things that happened there. And fundraising, we had a walk called the Shake, Rattle, and Roll. And the first year we barely raised a few $1,000s, and within the first few years we were raising almost $250,000 from that event. And I just, you know, my heart really is in this. There's, you know, any way that I can be a part of what you're doing to carry the message in any way, I'm very, very happy to do so.
Yeah, I think just by you being here is extremely impactful. You did say something that stood out to me earlier today when you mentioned for how long and how far along all the technology and stuff has come across. You mentioned for the DBS procedure, you recall the whole head being shaved. And
Yes.
so now, to my understanding, they just shave a little piece out.
Yes, I think you're right.
They don't do the full head anymore. So that just kind of reflects on the ability that, you know, the neurologists and physicians have nowadays. So that is,
Absolutely.
I agree with what you said when it says to we're living in a good time for this.
Mhm.
There's no obviously good time to do that, but if you had to choose a time right now, is looking pretty good with the efforts that are being put into, you know, the progressive aspect of it. So
Absolutely. And I would say, you know, for anyone, and because Parkinson's, unfortunately, um, does not discriminate. You know, there's people that have been very, very young that have been diagnosed, and, you know, all the way up into, you know, our senior years. And I would just say, you know, the importance of, you know, staying as active as absolutely possible, that your disease, you know, what your disease allows for you. There was a gentleman in Denver that I recall very significantly, and he was probably diagnosed in his late 50s, and I met him when he was probably in his late 60s. But his exercise that he could do very safely was a recumbent bike. And I mean, you would see him all over the city riding. It was kind of cool, you know. And he's still alive. I do keep tabs, so he's doing well. He's, you know, in his probably in his early 80s now. So yeah, staying active and you know, doing everything you can to, you know, take care of the physical part. But, you know, as we all know, any disease process, you know, it's all, you know, it's physical, it's mental, it's our emotional, our spiritual, and it's important to take care of that.
100% agree. And it seems like every seminar, even every meeting that we go to, the main topic is the physical aspect. That's what we're
Right.
learning. And that I feel like it's been more and more pushed as we continue that how important and how beneficial the physical aspect could be.
Right. Right.
So definitely. Well, I really appreciate you coming out, sharing some, you know, your story with everyone.
Absolutely.
So we greatly appreciate that as we're all isolated here. Um,
Yes, I hope everyone is staying well and taking advantage of the time being home.
Definitely, a lot of us are, looking for if we're not already a part of a virtual exercise program. So that's one thing that is out there, again, going back to the physical aspect of it
Oh,
all.
great.
So we're just trying to stay on top of all of that. So
Wonderful. Well, I hope when we are able to be back together that I will be able to attend a group, whether it's a support group or otherwise.
definitely, yeah, we'll keep you updated as time progresses. Hopefully we'll get these orders lifted and be able to see each other personally.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You're
And
very welcome.
I will talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.